what do you make of this incredible comeback by the Jaguars this past weekend? And how do you think it's going to affect them going into the Chiefs game in that divisional round next week?
Well, I mean, I wanted to start off with saying I picked Jacksonville. Didn't start off looking good with my pick, like Kyle said at the first half, but I mean, it goes to show what 1 year's difference can do with experience under your belt and a coaching change. Last year, Urban Meyer was the head coach. Trevor Lawrence looked mediocre, to say the least, as a number one overall pick. Now we're talking about they're beating a competitive football team in the playoffs and moving on to face the Chiefs in Arrowhead. Like, that's a narrative I don't believe anybody saw coming. But let's start it off with Jacksonville's defense was incredible in terms of stopping the run. They held the Chargers to 67 yards rushing. That's 2.9 yards per carry. They put it all on Justin Herbert's shoulders, which is exactly what I said they needed to do in order to get a victory. And at first, again, like I said before, it didn't necessarily look too good because of how slow they started with all the turnovers. I mean, let's get it straight. Trevor Lawrence had 4 turnovers before the half, and it was kind of getting a little out of hand that Asante Samuel Jr. had 3 of them by himself. But I mean, he's just like his daddy. He's a ball hawk. So I mean, I got his helmet, his mini helmet, actually, like right behind me, the Patriots one. That's the one Patriots thing I own in my life, and that's the only thing I'll ever own that's a Patriots thing, for the record. But I mean, Justin Herbert, 43 passing attempts. I mean, it was solely all on his shoulders. Trevor Lawrence was able to hand the ball off to Travis Etienne. He had 109 yards, averaging 5.5 a carry. I mean, Trevor in the second half was able to move them down the field effectively to get them and put them in position, and he happened to capitalize while in the red zone. I mean, he had 4 touchdown passes in that second half, or should I say 3 in the second half, and I believe he had 1 in the to close out that half. Dude, that Jacksonville defense stepped up. There's nothing else you can say. I mean, 3 points in the second half as opposed to 27 in the first. There's literally no argument, no conversation to be had. I don't understand how this happened. Kyle actually texted me. He goes, "This shit's fixed." And Kyle's not someone to say that, because I turned it off. When it was 27-0, I was at my girl's house. I turned it off. I had no reason to watch it anymore. I was like, damn it. Shout out to LA out. I was pretty much checked out. I didn't want to text Charlie because I was like, let me let him enjoy this moment. Thank God I didn't, because I would have been a long list of other people that said, oh, it's over. And then Jacksonville goes out and comes out the way that they did. So, I mean, kudos to Jacksonville. They proved a lot of people wrong. They showed that the weapons and offense that they work with has gotten better every single game. I mean, Evan Ingram was a tight end that's known for dropping passes left and right in New York. Christian Kirk was a career number 2, number 3 in Arizona. Zay Jones, a traveling wide receiver, he ends up coming up big as well. I mean, the combination of all 3 of those, they ended up with 3 touchdowns, over 250 yards between the 3 of them. I don't really know what to say. They carried the offense, and they found a way to get it done. So as a team, as a unit, Jacksonville moves forward. They're going up against a really tough opponent in the Chiefs. I'm not going to sit here and say that it's going to be a blowout or anything. I know we're going to get into the divisional predictions in just a few minutes. But overall, in terms of what I see, Jacksonville's got confidence. This is pivotal for them to win. They were a win and get in situation versus Tennessee to get the AFC South title. This is another thing to kind of catapult a team and gain momentum at the right time, because it's teams like this. Higher teams like Kansas City will downplay, oh, they're coming to our house. Wildcard teams are always slept on. I didn't say that they were, because obviously they're a divisional opponent, but overall, Jacksonville shocked the world in a lot of ways, especially with it being the 3rd largest comeback in postseason history. But I think that Kansas City needs to take this very serious, because I don't see Trevor Lawrence making another 4 mistakes like this, and it could be even more deadly than he was in the second half.
I mean, it was just a phenomenal comeback from the Jags as a whole, because like you said, Kev, I thought this game was over once it was 27-0. And then just slowly but surely, the Jags started putting drives together. I honestly think that touchdown drive right before halftime, I think it settled the team as a whole. I think at first, this is pretty apparent to say, or pretty obvious. The lights were a little bit bright for them at first. And I think maybe the jitters got to them a little bit, especially with Trevor throwing 4 interceptions. I mean, we've been watching Trevor for the last couple of years, and I think it's safe to say that we've never seen him start off a game this poorly.
Hell no.
So the fact that he was able to come back and put up 4 touchdowns throughout the entirety of the game with 3 in the second half. I mean, you want to talk about just flipping the script and just basically just dialing it up entirely in the second half. Good on him. And when it comes to the Chargers, what happened? 27 points in the first half, 3 in the second half. It was literally a tale of two halves. And, that's what the Jags are moving on, and the Chargers aren't. So, just looking at this game in totality, I thought the Chargers had this one. Simply just because when you get up to 27 nothing on the road and you just establish dominance defensively, man, usually that's going to win you games. But unfortunately for them, their defense just fell apart in the second half. And Kev, they gave up 23 points in the second half. You just can't have that. Now, I understand the offense wasn't doing anything incredible to get points on the board for them, but you just can't give up drive after drive after drive to get touchdowns against you. And I think when we look at the Chargers as a whole, I think the Chargers are the first team in NFL history to win the turnover battle by 5 and still lose. I don't think we've ever seen anything happen like that before. I think we've seen teams lose a turnover margin by like 3 or 4 turnovers and still win a game. That's a little bit more frequent. But 5 and you still lose, that's not a good look for the Chargers. So when it comes to them specifically, I'll be honest with you. I think people are going to lose their jobs based on what happened in that game against Jacksonville. You just can't have a 27-0 lead evaporate and then you lose it on the last play of the game. That's just a bad look for the Chargers. But, just to kind of round this back to the Jags, man, you want to talk about momentum going into a divisional round game. I mean, they got it. The wind is at their sails right now. And who knows? Could it carry them to a point where they are competitive against the Chiefs next week? Potentially. I think that defense showed if they're able to bring effective pass rushes against Patrick Mahomes, like they were able to against Justin Herbert in that second half, I think the Chiefs are going to be a little bit more in a dogfight than people originally anticipated. Simply just because I don't think a lot of people really thought that the Jags defense could step up to a point after giving up 27 points in the first half, limiting that offense with the Chargers to 3 in the second half. So I will say, the Jags are a young team. As far as I'm concerned, they're a team that's going to be going through growing pains for the next couple of years. But the fact that they're in the playoffs and the fact that they got this wild card win to advance it to the divisional round, I didn't expect that. So kudos for them. And going up against Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs next week, it's going to be a challenge. But like I said, I think they got some momentum at their back, and the Chiefs got to be careful because we have seen wild card teams in the past. Once they get momentum, they can be a very tough out in the playoffs. And some of them have even gone on to win Super Bowls. So, not saying that the Jags are going to do that. I'm just saying as precedent, the Chiefs really got to play A-plus football going into next week because the Jags, if they can force some turnovers against that Chiefs offense, that game is going to get a lot more tighter than people expect. So, great win for the Jags, great comeback, and we'll see what happens going into next week.